What was your biggest we need to leave now moment? When I was about 16, I went to visit my grandmother at her place. The smell of natural gas was intense, even though Nana didn't seem to notice it much. She was groggy, sort of half asleep, not her usual responsive self. So I made her get out of the house at once and opened the windows and doors. I called Dad, and he reported it to the gas company, who sent inspectors right away. They shut off the gas valve in the street immediately and sent a repair crew to fix a leaking joint in the gas supply pipe. The inspector said that if I hadn't acted then and there, the probability was great that there would soon have been an explosion. I was in a mall in Indonesia and 2 tourists seemed to be having problems communicating with the cashier at a bookstore, so I helped translate. They wanted to buy me drinks to thank me. Told them it's not necessary and I have to get back to my mom soon. They told me to meet them for dinner. Told them I have to have dinner at home. They told me to sneak out and meet them after dinner. At this point, a bookstore staff noticed something was wrong and went up to question them. My sister and I dashed off while they were distracted, continued wandering around the mall and realized they were following us. To see if we were just paranoid, we ducked into a lingerie store, since we figured 2 men won't usually need to go lingerie shopping together. They followed us in, ran so quickly back to the jewelry store our mom was at. The store had intimidating security guards and I guess that stopped those guys. I was 11, my sister was 10. Probably 2 months after my wedding, I invited my then best friend, maid of honor, to a party my husband and I were going to. She agreed. Sometime into it, I'm drunk and in the pool and my husband swims out to me to tell me she just asked him to sleep with her. I have never sobered up or left somewhere so fast. Woodstock 99. Felt the energy of the grossly overpacked crowd, the building rage, and looked my friends and said we need to go. They stayed. I left. Shortly after fired and riots started and my friends lost everything they had with them. Tents, clothes, food, everything. When you have 300k people shoulder to shoulder in 104-degree humidity and charge $4 for a bottle of water and have half as many bathrooms as needed, you're gonna have a bad time. Met this cute girl at a party. Spent the whole night dancing and flirting. Offered to drive her home and she agreed. We were making out in the car in front of her house when another car pulls up with their headlights beaming at us. I ask if that's a neighbor and if we are blocking their driveway. She replies no, that's my husband. Husband's car door opens and I nope the f out of there. Dropped her straight back at the party and never saw her again. Her excuse was that they were separated and he shouldn't have a problem with it. I sure wasn't sticking around to find out. So I was waiting at the train station to pick up a friend of mine. I was early, so I decided to stand in the sun right outside of the station. A guy with a bicycle walked up to me asking in broken English if I knew how late the train would arrive. After I answered the question he stayed around and starting talking to me. Now I know that's not weird at all, but the things he asked and the way he acted and looked just gave me a creepy vibe. Eventually he asked if I would walk with him while he dropped his bicycle off. I didn't want to because the place to store bicycles at this station is very secluded, and to be honest I didn't want to be alone with this guy. So I noped out and walked into the station. He started yelling at me, calling me names, but at that moment the train came in and it got very busy, so he left. A few months later I read this article in the local paper about a girl being raped at the station. They had put a drawing of a guy next to the article as he was not yet caught. It was the same guy. To this day I'm very happy I didn't go with him. Grocery shopping with my grandma. She's tired, normal for her, but she's getting a bit slower and dragging her leg more than usual. At the checkout counter I saw her face was a little droopy and I said we are leaving now and going to ER. They gave her a bottle of water for the car ride which she ended up choking on and vomiting up all the water. Called ahead to ER, so they were ready and they took care of her as soon as possible. She was having a stroke and they were able to help her quick enough so that she didn't have any long-lasting issues. About 2 months ago, I'd stayed up past my usual bedtime, and as soon as I got in bed I smelled something odd and was hearing some inconsistent banging and clattering from downstairs. I don't live in a great neighborhood, so none of this was unusual, but I got out of bed to check anyway and saw flames licking up the side of the building. Yelled at my wife to get out of bed and threw on some clothes, and we hightailed it out. Our building has a shared wall with the next, and that one had an apartment on the ground floor fully engulfed by the time we made it outside. Ended up condemning the whole building. I was the first one to call 911. Have been jerking myself awake in the night pretty consistently since then. The owner of Mexican restaurant threw 2 young farm workers at the bar out to the parking lot. They were drunk as monkeys and proceeded to try to fight, but mostly just leaned on each other, all in front of the picture window, while the place is full of people. Then one runs to his trucks and burns rubber out there. I said, "Time to go, honey," she says. "What? Those assholes are done, and I'm not going to be here when the shooting starts." We left. It did not long after. Late afternoon in the summer, I'm waiting in the bus station near my house. Most businesses are closed, not a lot of cars in the street. Guy passes in front of me. He passes again 2 minutes later, watching me suspiciously. Alarms start to go in my head, screaming to me that I need to leave and get the f*** off here, but I ignore it since the bus will come in 10 minutes. Third time he passes, he charges to me, pushing me to the wall with his cock out. I freeze for some seconds, then start punching and kicking him. I manage to get away, and the rest is history. Yeah, trust your guts, guys. My friend invited me to a seminar. Everyone were dressed in white shirt and black pant with black shoes. I was odd one out in here. For some weird reason, they were praising founder, as if he was some kind of god. When I went into the auditorium, they were showing how these 17-year-olds were earning 200,000 rupees in a month, which is equivalent in India, translated to about $3,500, with their own bikes, cars, and shit like that. Then it dawned upon me that this is eerily similar to one of the biggest scam in that used similar business model about 7 years ago at the time. I really wanted to move out as soon as possible. My brainwashed friend was sitting a few rows behind me. All of those involved in this marketing were required to do so for weird reason. It was cringy at best and exploitative at worst. Never caught up with him ever since. That friend of mine wasn't really bad person or anything. He didn't even force me to buy the product or anything. Maybe due to the fact that I studied in different city. The product seemed really good from outside, but the method of selling really looked like one for MLM. There was another person in that group who was from my school, didn't know him in any way, who forced one of my family friend, went to same school, to buy that product. He then resorted to swearing and abused her online for not buying the product. I'm not sure if it is a full-fledged MLM, because the participants weren't forced to buy product in bulk. Probably because all of them were students. I don't recall the name of the company, so IDK, how is that company still doing? My friend and I, both females, met up our first time back home from college. It was a surprisingly nice day outside in the middle of winter, so we decided to get lunch and eat outside. We found a park that had no one there and were sitting at a picnic table catching up when I see a scruffy looking guy in a large work van with no rear windows pull into the parking lot. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to him at first, but I noticed he was moving around the outside of the van for a bit, and he kept looking our way. He finally walked down the sidewalk toward us, and passed by our picnic table, and walked around the back side of the restroom building to look down the hill on the other side of it, very obviously casing out the place. He walked back to his van, and me and my friend were discussing what we were going to do, while I watched him open up the back of the van and start digging around it. He made a call on his cell phone, and a few minutes later another male pulled up in a different car. He got out and started talking to the first guy, who not very discreetly pointed our direction. They immediately started walking toward us and my friend, and I scooped what was left of lunch and fast walked out of the place while keeping an eye on them. One of the times in my life I could literally feel the hair on the back of my neck standing on end. It could have been nothing, but even now I feel pretty certain that they had something planned, and I'm glad we left. I was in college when I had my first solo apartment. This guy across the hall would come over or invite me over, and we'd hang out a few times. However, I would not call him a friend. One night he asks me to loan him some money. In addition to not wanting to loan him money, I don't really have any, so he proceeds to ask for a ride to see his girlfriend, because she has some money for him. I agree. We arrive at her apartment and a small party is going on. When we walked into the party, everyone immediately shuts up and stares at us. He runs off to find his girlfriend, who I find out is his ex-girlfriend. It is awkward, because I'm kind of this guy's friend by association, and I'm getting lots of angry stares. He gets into an argument with her, and we are basically thrown out of this place. He then asks if I can take him to another part of town. He owes another guy some money and needs to go talk to him. We proceed to an unfamiliar part of town, and he instructs me to park in a fairly isolated spot. He explains that he doesn't want the other guy to see my car, because he might take it. He owes this guy money for gambling, or drugs or something else bad, and he is way behind on his payments. I left him, and spent the rest of my time in that apartment avoiding him. Girls camp, my last year. Me and a small group of girls wanted to climb to the top of this big hill that has a beautiful look out above the trees and clear view of the sky. It was a new moon and zero light pollution. We grabbed our flashlights and got on the trail. About 3/4 of the way up, the two girls leading us stopped dead in their tracks at the same time. One whispered to the other, "Do you feel that?" I was right behind them and heard what they said. I looked up and around. I didn't see anything, but something in the air made the hair on my neck stand on end. It was just too quiet. I started to feel very vulnerable and scared. One of the girls in front turned and said, "We need to go back. Don't run." One girl asked why not run, and they said, "So you don't trip." Valid reason, but I don't believe it was the real reason she said it.